Hello, I'm Toycat, and when you think of countries that have had the most countries become independent from them, you're probably thinking of the UK with 53 examples, or Spain with 30 plus, maybe even Russia with its 15. However, maybe the biggest overlooked example is Turkey. A dozen or so countries have become independent from it over the last 100 or so years, and this results in one of the most interesting border situations in the world. Turkey borders 7-ish countries. It'll become clear why we have to say ish later on in this video, but Turkey borders 7-ish countries, and it results in the most interesting geopolitical situation that, like with most places, can explain its very weird policy of being partway between the US and NATO, partway between the EU, and also very much being a Middle Eastern country that still has better than expected relations with Russia. How is all of that possible? Allow me to explain with today's fun border video. We're doing something a little bit different, and I hope you enjoy it. But first, let's just explain the elephant on the room, or rather, let's explain the turkey bird in the room, because wow, why is Turkey named after this cute little bird? It's actually, fun fact, the other way around. Turkey means land of the Turks, and so when people saw these cute little birds being carried around there, they associated the bird with the country, and then kind of like in reverse fashion, the turkey maybe is more on people's minds day to day, which is why people associate the country with the bird, which is why even though turkeys are named after Turkey, Turkey changed its name to disassociate itself with the bird, and that is why you should spell it this way. But if we're being honest, most people still spell it this way. Maybe even the title of this video. Who knows? I don't want anyone to be offended. Actually, I'm going to offend a lot of people in this video, because here's the deal. Turkey is a European country. The reason Turkey has good relations with the EU and can join the European Union, despite the fact that it is a very much Middle Eastern country, is because of the fact that it has this 3% of its territory being distinctly in Europe. This is where roughly 1 in 8 of the people in the country live. It's a very big deal, and it's in fact contains the former capital of the Ottoman Empire, Istanbul, one of the largest cities in fact, the largest city in the European area, if you kind of extend European to mean any country with territory in Europe. And so as a result, it is a very, very big deal. However, the first of the 7 borders we'll be talking about today is 7-ish borders we're going to be talking about today is going to be that of its border with Bulgaria. Bulgaria and Turkey have a pretty calm relationship compared to most of the borders in this video. There are only 3 border crossings along this entire border though, and one of them, this one in particular, is the busiest border crossing in Europe. In fact, there are so many people entering and exiting here because this is the gateway from Turkey, the largest country in Europe by population if you exclude Russia. But because we kicked Russia out of Europe. They're not a European country anymore. That's definitely how that works. Trust me on that one. But Turkey is the largest European country that we haven't kicked out of the European sphere. And basically, there's going to be a lot of people offended that, aren't there? But you know what? I can do what I want with my video, and I can call Turkey the biggest European country. Anyway, speaking of things I can do, I can also explain to you that this is the biggest border crossing into the EU. Therefore, it is the gateway between this giant country of over 80 million people and the European Union. And so it is kind of a big deal. That's why so many people cross. And therefore, the Bulgaria-Turkish border can be explained by saying, well, it moved a whole ton, and really the entirety of Bulgaria was at one point part of the Ottoman Empire, but nowadays it's a very chill affair, especially when you compare it to the other Turkish-European border of the Greek border. So the Turkish-Greek border follows this river, and then it follows this river for the vast majority of it, except if you look a lot closer, you'll see that this, Turkish town kind of expands past the river on the Greek side, and then also as we go to the southwest corner of the Greek-Turkish border, it gets really confusing because there are entire sections of what looks like it should be Turkey that belong to Greece. In fact, there's a bridge over the Greek part of the river that looks like it goes into more Greece, although it kind of goes into Turkey. Who knows for sure? It's this very weird situation where there is a river defining the border, but the border has not updated alongside with the river updating, because, fun fact, new river update just dropped, and it turns out they've changed significantly over time. And so, it means the Greek-Turkish border is a little bit of a mess, but this is actually the undisputed part of the border. Both Greece and Turkey, maybe they would like more land across the border, maybe they would like the entirety of the other country's existence, or at least large parts of it. However, the part where things really get spicy is when you look at the border when it comes to islands. This is the Turkish-Greek border situation, sometimes known as the Aegean dispute. And if you look at the series of maps, you can see that, wow, even though Greece is definitely the smaller country, if we scale to population, population, Greece ball, Turkey ball. Even though Greece is the much smaller fighter in this game, they definitely have a significant number of these islands. In fact, it looks unfair just how, you'd figure this sea, the Aegean Sea, would be a 50-50 split, but maybe the fact that it's called the Aegean Sea keys you in that, like, yeah, loads of it goes to Turkey, and in fact, it's even more confusing because these islands aren't like, oh yeah, they're like these super long possessions of Greece. They're islands that used to belong to Italy pre-World War II, and then were given to Greece, and, the more you dive into this, the more confusing it is, but long story short, as a result of the airspace and the maritime rights that these islands grant Greece, there's a lot of international treaties that Turkey refuses to sign, because it would have to mean that we can't fly planes over what is, to be fair, rightfully in their opinion, some of their airspace next to their big landmass, which is pretty well connected, minus these islands, I would say. However, the Greece-Turkey situation, it's like, leaving behind Europe for a little bit, is a very big deal, and it is a very big dispute, perhaps you could say, that is honestly endlessly going back and forth, but it's nothing compared to the Armenian-Turkey border. So Armenia and Turkey had relations. They definitely had some relations after the breakup of the USSR, and they tried to get things going to a fresh start, but as it turns out, even though they do have a border with free crossings, all three of those crossings are shut right now. And it's weird because both Turkey and Armenia have basically explained that they do not intend to open this border again, and both these countries have very poor relations. And if anyone could let me know in the comments down below, is there a good reason why Armenia would be mad at Turkey? Is there like a good explanation for that? I mean, in this video, I'll explain something entirely unrelated to Turkey and Armenia. Just, this is unrelated to these two countries, trust me. But obviously, Turkey in this particular situation, in this situation, let's say you're a country that needs to kind of grow your influence and make people in your lands feel like they're less of their own independent people, and maybe feel like they're more part of you, as they rightfully are at the time of you thinking this. And so let's say you take all of the men of these people, and you try to kill as many of them as you can, knowing that you can crush the culture and bring them into yourself. Again, this is just a hypothetical, what you could do if you were trying to crush a smaller country's spirit and really bring them into your empire of collective. And let's say, like in your mind, maybe they deserve this, because what are they doing thinking they can be independent from you in the first place? That would be an entirely unrelated situation, which admittedly happened 100 years ago and has never been fully recognized by a lot of countries trying to keep Turkey on their side. But also, if countries aren't recognizing it, is it even a big deal? There's some fun fodder for the comments. But yeah, Armenia and Turkey, despite sharing a border which is actually pretty hefty, do not have any decent way of crossing it. In fact, if you want to cross the border, you've got to go to Georgia. So Georgia, in theory, could have some of these same issues with Turkey, because it is a smaller country, which is part of the USSR, and which, therefore a lot of Georgians live in Turkey and vice versa. Not many, but like, a sizable number. But as a result of Georgia being busy with its other issues, let's say, Georgia and Turkey actually do have fairly good relations, and so their border checkpoints are all open. But just as a fun little, because, you might think, wow, Georgia and Turkey being good friends, this is the first example on this list where you can say there is no bad blood here whatsoever, except as it turns out, even though everything is pretty good most of the time, occasionally the Turkish president, Erdogan, makes occasional comments like this one, where he said that our physical boundaries are different from the boundaries of our heart, and then kind of implying that he thinks that Georgia's second largest city, Batumi, right here, just over the border, who can separate it from Rise, which is just on this side of the border. And although Erdogan is probably right in that borders are a social construct to some large extent, I think saying that and then immediately afterwards saying, yeah, it would be nice if we could just take a large part of your territory, is maybe proof of why Georgia and Turkey, they get along, but they're not best friends in the world. You know who is best friends? Turkey and Syria. For real, one of the things that has to be said about Turkey and the impressiveness of it, and maybe one of the reasons it's such a, you might look at Turkey and say, wow, they do things that we would never do in my country over here. But of course they do. They're in a very different situation, literally bordering both Syria and Iraq two places that have been active war zones recently. And it's even crazier when you look at the Turkish-Syria border, which is one of their longest shared continuous segments. And you can see that unlike in Europe and unlike elsewhere, where there's mountain ranges and there are rivers to define it, when it comes to the Turkish-Syrian border, there is a very short river section right here, which is why it looks kind of squiggly, but the rest of it is just very hard to define. In fact, if we go to the western portion, the eastern portion of the border, along the 712 road, you can see how a part of this major Syrian road just kind of dips into Turkish territory, and then, you know, the border seems like it was made in a long foregone time, but it turns out Turkey and Syria's very busy with other things right now, and so the fact that Turkey and Syria can have, you know, the fact that this is probably one of the most hot and crazy borders in the world, says something that it still is open to this day. For real, if you would like to go to Syria, good luck getting there by a lot of conventional means, but you can just go to Turkey and walk over the Syrian border. In fact, there's quite a lot of controversy because a lot of people will use this if they are, you know, recruits in the world and want to join ISIS, because Turkey is a very easy country to get into, and crossing the Turkish-Syrian border when Syria is in its current situation, also relatively easy to do. And so, yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You know, that depends on your opinion, really, doesn't it? Just like how the Turkish-Iraqi border, as you can see right here, it is a very interestingly shaped border. You start to look at it, and the more you look, the less sense it makes, but it actually is a fairly natural mountainous border for a large part of it, and as a result, there are very few crossings, and those crossings have an interesting tale of strained relations. So, although Turkey and Iraq, you know, they are fairly good friends for the most part, there is an interesting situation where Turkey crosses the border and does a lot of extraterritorial actions against some people from, because the northern part of Iraq is actually the Kurdistan, the Kurdish People's Republic. It's the Kurdish Autonomous Region. And so, although this might seem like it's Iraq, really, Turkey borders, you know, a theoretical Kurdish land, right? And so, if there are lots of people in Turkey who are Kurdish, and maybe they're in that region of the country, maybe this makes things a little bit strained. Maybe it's made more strained by the fact that a big organization, the Kurdish People's Party, in case you're curious, you know, like, you know, just the Kurdistan Workers' Party, they've got a fun flag. I mean, how can you be against people who have a flag like this? I mean, besides the fact that they're designated as a terrorist organization by Turkey, well, of course they'd say that they don't like communists. The United States, well, of course they'd say that they don't like communists. The EU, okay, well, I mean, maybe they're just being nice. Okay, there is a major communist/terrorist party which operates quite freely from inside of Iraq, and so Turkey and Iraq do have relations where they can just send in their forces across the border and deal with that. Also, by the way, on the list of countries that designate them a terrorist group are Japan, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. Are you trusting any of those countries yet? It leads to this very weird situation, maybe not unakin to the IRA or the, you know, like other terrorist groups that have a political wing of like, when does the politics end and when does the blowing people up start? And the answer is, okay. So yeah, where this relates to the Iraq, you know, Turkish border is it means that they have some interesting relations where, by and large, they get along well enough to make this happen. However, just like with everything, they tend to upset people a lot, which is why I think Iran and Turkey have the funniest border of all of them, because Iran and Turkey are really two of the biggest players in the Middle East. And so you would expect, like with most things, that they would not, you know, like with most things in the Middle East, they would not get along. However, in general, the two countries do have decent relations, and so one of the biggest tourist routes for Iranians who are, you know, maybe having issues getting into lots of countries right now, and for the rest of the world getting into Iran. Iran and Turkey are great trading partners in that way, because they can send goods over their border, they can travel to each other's country, and so millions of Iranians go to Turkey every single year. The Iranians and Turkish people have a great friendly relation, and how that relates to their border is it means their border is relatively open for a country which is under heavy economic sanction by the majority of the world. For real, the Iranian rial is a very hard currency to get your hands on, not least because it's worth this amount. But also, yeah, the physical border itself is super interesting, because as you follow up, it's got this kind of jagged nature to it, where you can see it doesn't necessarily go through major, major settlements like it does in Syria. But then when you arrive at the northeastern part of it, by the way, I just have to mention, because this is fascinating to me, the one area where Turkey and Iran do disagree is they have different viewpoints all the time in this weird Middle Eastern Cold War that exists, where, Iran is one of the major players and Saudi Arabia is one of the other ones, and Turkey kind of plays both sides, which Iran doesn't like so much. Turkey is, actually has relations with Israel, first major Middle Eastern country to do so, and so Iran has kind of frosty relations on that level, but on the other level, Iran says, well, do we have any other friends? Anyway, following up the border some more, the final part of the Turkish border system is the most interesting, because as you follow the border up to the north, you'll see that the Iranian, where you'd expect Iran and Armenia to have a border, instead, Turkey just juts out some more, having this lovely E99 road. As far as I can tell, no one lives in this stretch of Turkey, but it does mean that Turkey expands far enough past where these two countries would border each other, and therefore Iran and Armenia do not share a border, and instead Iran, Turkey, and Azerbaijan share this tri-point, which means this river separates Azerbaijan from Turkey. And so you might be saying, that's 8 countries, Toycat. Why did you say 7-ish? And so I'm going to have to make another one of these fun examples that definitely does not relate to the real world to explain Turkey and Azerbaijan. So let's just say, hypothetically, country A, they are yellow country balls here, who know that, they're just yellow. Country A decides that it has a large part of territory, and country B says, no, that is my territory. So, logically, who do you decide who owns the territory? The international community. And so that is actually country A. Maybe they're both country A. Yeah, country A disagrees with country A on this one. Because country A says, well, actually, even though the world says that's your territory, and that's usually done, 90% of the people who live there are from country A, and also it's entirely separated from the rest of you, and it's basically surrounded entirely by us. Also, not to mention the fact that, historically, the only reason that country A is separated from country A is because of Mr. Joseph Stalin and the USSR's weird policy of trying to make countries fight each other. And so as a result, really, can you not just admit that these people who are very separated from you, country A, really are part of us, country A? And so other country A says no. And that explains why maybe Turkey borders an 8th country, maybe it doesn't. And that's not to mention the fact that, so Turkey, even though it tries to have good relations with everyone, it has no issue standing up for its interests, and sometimes that's quite controversial, because there is a country in the world called the Turkish Northern Republic Cyprus. I don't know the actual name, whatever. There is this country which is recognized only by Turkey, and which is majority ethnically Turk, and which occupies the northern half of the island of Cyprus. Fun fact, because of Cyprus being divided into 4 separate segments, Northern Cyprus, regular Cyprus, real original Cyprus. There's the weird UN non-delimited zone, but there's also these British territories. That's right, a part of my country is involved in this too, because when Cyprus went independent from the UK, we decided, maybe they would keep some military bases for us. And so yeah, as a result, there's an island which is divided into 4 separate political jurisdictions and entirely different sovereignties, but the Northern Cyprus is not recognized by anyone but Turkey, and so as a result, you either say that all of Cyprus belongs to Cyprus, minus the British bits, which, maybe you say they belong to Cyprus too, and they're just military-based leases that are sovereign territory, but are they that sovereign? Anyway, so you might either say Cyprus belongs all to one country, or you would say, more realistically, that the northern half of Cyprus is a Turkish puppet state, and or just effectively an extension of Turkey itself, an unofficially recognized part of it. But just like with the previous example, let's say that country C, just pure hypothetical countries, let's say country C becomes independent from its big tea-sipping overlords, right? And one of the parts of the agreement of that is that it will have a lovely, friendly arrangement between the blue people and the red people, but then you feel like the red people, who happen to be ethnically the same as you, You know, they have the same famous dessert bird. Is it a dessert bird? They have the same famous holiday bird that is named after them, and so you might think like, wow, they are being mistreated in this country, and there's no one standing up for this, and over years of trying, no one does anything, and so maybe you just decide that you're going to stand up for the red people by invading and giving them their own country, and then let's say no one recognizes that country, then that's the situation that might exist anywhere in the world, but particularly in Cyprus. So, yeah, that has been a fully comprehensive recap. Actually, not fully comprehensive, a poorly comprehensive recap of Turkey. But I was mostly doing this as like a fun test of this new editing style. I think it's fun to implement some country ball craziness in there. And if you think it's fun too, then let me know in the comments. Don't worry. As you can tell from my numerous mistakes, quality is remaining low on this channel. I am taking all this sponsor money, all this Patreon money, by the way, patreon.com/toycat, just in case you wanna help fund the editing, so that more of my YouTube revenue can go to my real passion, which is buying things that are not related to the production quality of this channel, but that taste good and or are good. You know, I need a better green screen situation. It's all terrible, and you know what? I'm just kidding. I'm going to spend it on lobster rolls. But if you want to support that, patreon.com/toycat. Thank you to, I don't know how to say your name, but thank you, Gavriel, with an extra I. Gavriel. Yeah, it's probably Gavriel, for the editing today. And unless maybe it didn't come together, and that's not how that worked. We'll find out after this goes up, I guess. Second channel, don't care. Goodbye.